Thursday edition of Birds 365, key juncture of the offseason because free agency is right around the corner. And John and I gave you a couple of thoughts on a couple of guys. Last segment, this segment, we're going to get the thoughts of Scott Grayson from Fox 29, their sports director. Scott, know that you, like everybody else, was held with rapture of Jason Kelce's retirement speech the other day, and he filled in a couple more blanks yesterday on his New Heights podcast.
Yeah, I told you that was coming, Jody.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to explain it on that.
It just made too much sense not to be the way he was going to lay it out. Scotty Grayson, how the hell the Eagles going to replace Jason Kelce on the field, off the field, in any way, shape, or form that he has effects here on the Delaware Valley?
Yeah, that is one of the biggest offseason questions they have, right? I mean, that is such, one of the credits you have to give Jason Kelce is I don't think the regular fan, or at least Eagles fans, understood how important the center position is until you had a Jason Kelce here doing it.
I don't think the Eagles knew, Scott.
For sure. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Thanks, John. You almost killed me.
But we've had how many off seasons did we go through the whole is Jason going to retire this year question? I mean, there's no doubt the Eagles have had years to formulate the plan, and it's a matter of kicking it into action now. And over time, over those years, maybe the plan has changed a little bit. Is it going to be Cam Jurgens? Is it going to be Landon Dickerson? I mean, some of the things I'm hearing about Landon Dickerson is that he is super smart and can read defenses, a little bit like Jason Kelce was able to. And given his youth, if you give that guy more time, more experience, more snaps, would he start to be a better choice than Cam Jurgens? The other question is, do you want to move Landon Dickerson when he's been doing so well at guard? Do you go find it? I mean, there's a lot of avenues here they could go. I got to believe they're going to lean towards in-house first. It's just a matter of for me, I don't know whether it'll be Jurgens or Dickerson that they look to first. But either one, I think, is a good option. It's not Jason Kelce. You will not have Jason Kelce there. And I think we're going to learn, quite frankly, how important or vital Jason Kelce was to the success of the tush push. I know Jalen Hurts certainly played a big role in that, but I think Jason, given how low he is to the ground with his size, leverage is the big key first and foremost to winning that line of scrimmage. And the guy in front of him, I'm curious to see how much of an impact it will be not having him in there yelling,
That's interesting. I always talk about that. When I covered Minnesota, Scott, there was and I've told this story before, there's a right tackle named Tim Irwin, who played forever. He played like 15 states. Then he became an NFL agent, very successful. At the end of his career, I swear to you, he got away with everything. He had such a great reputation among he was holding, and then the Vikings drafted Corey Stringer, who I was also on the field when he passed away. Terrible. I talked about that, but Corey was a great player. I mean, phenomenal athlete, top tier player, first round pick. And early in his career, before he kind of hit his stride, he wasn't as good because he couldn't get away with what Irwin got away with. They weren't letting him hold people and hold Reggie. Like Tim Irwin gave Reggie White fits because he'd tackle him and there'd be no flag. And they just let it go. And you have that sort of Michael Jordan mentality with offensive linemen. They have different rules, veteran guys. Cam Jurgens ain't going to get away with moving the football. And occasionally, when it's a big deal, when Jason would take a half yard at times. People aren't watching. He just move it up. And they'd be like, all right, I'm not going to call it on Kelce. And then when they do, Kelce would sheepishly go, yeah, I went a little too far on that one. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. But now that you bring it up, that's going to be a big difference because you're not going to get that deference you had on the tush push when Jason Kelce is in there. Good spot by you. That's a nice job by Scott Grayson.
Good talking to you. I guess I'll get it.
But let me add this about the tush push because I thought the same thing. How integral was Kelce as compared to Hurts for the tush push's success? You have the now more aerodynamically correct Jalen Hurts without the beard. Did you see him on the new heights yet?
Yeah.
I almost didn't recognize who the hell it was. Oh, who's that? Oh, shoot, that's Hurts. Didn't even pick him out. So he's more aerodynamically correct. I think he's still going to be very effective on the tush push.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, when you have, and that was, if you look at the teams that would complain about why it wasn't working for them. I mean, none of them have the strength in the legs that a Jalen Hurts does.
Nope.
But I'm curious to see, and like I said, I'm curious to see how much of the role Jason played allowed Hurts to get that leverage forward first, to go for it. But you know what? Teams are spending the offseason, guys. We know how they do it, right? They're trying to figure out how to stop it. And the Niners got away, or not the Niners, the Bucks. I think it was the Bucks got away with the face mask.
Yeah.
And if you could, like you said, with moving the football up, hey, if that's how you have to stop it and you can get away with it, well then.
Yeah.
But so it's going to be fun to watch that play this next season. Will it be as successful? Will it still be successful at all? Could it be more successful? I mean, it can't really be more successful because they kind of do it almost all the time, almost to 100%. But I mean, kind of like what different roles everybody played in, how it was formulated, how it worked, how it succeeded. But I agree with you, Jody. I mean, Jalen Hurts, obviously he's the guy with the ball. He's got to pick that narrow lane he's trying to push himself through with the guys behind him helping. But I think it will still be successful. I just wonder, will it be successful at the same rate?
Personal question, Scott. Did the Grayson family have to make an extra trip to Target or your favorite grocery store to get some extra Kleenex after watching the Jason Kelce press conference? How moved were you guys?
I'm probably the only one who watched the whole thing. But the boys came home from school, and I'm like, "Did you guys see Jason Kelce?" Yeah. And they see the clips. But I think, and I'm glad you brought that up, John, because it is what makes Kelce, I think, one of the greatest legends of this city. He didn't care what anybody thought, and he was that way when he came here. He didn't care what anybody thought. He didn't care he did care about right when he was having his rough season and the booze and the wondering if he was going to get traded, and all that. He did care. I shouldn't say he didn't care, but he never let it affect him negatively. If anything, he turned it into a positive, right? So his speeches, I've been thinking about this. I don't think we've heard the best speech yet. And I thought the Super Bowl one couldn't be topped. I mean, when you hear the entirety of his retirement speech, he sat down and worked on that thing.
Oh, he worked on it for years. Kylie admitted it. He said he's been working on that for years,
and he couldn't even get it started. And then it's he's a human being. He's been a human being, and he's always been. I mean, John, you've experienced this. You talked to him after a rough game. He was brutally honest about either the role he played in it or the way the team played. If he, had a good game, it wasn't always about him, but, the role he played in the game, he was always so honest. And that's what I, as a reporter, always appreciated was you knew if you could talk to Jason after a game, you were going to get the real lowdown. You weren't going to get the cliches and all the jargon that comes out. And so I don't think the best speech has happened yet. I think it's either going to be, and I hope we get to see this, whatever Travis gets married, the best man speech, or it's going to be the Hall of Fame speech, which we all know is going to be 5 years from now. That is going to be something. And he's got 5 years to work on it if he hasn't already started.
If he's got a speech to give during his brother's nuptials, we'll catch it on TMZ. So that'll be good. That won't be no problem. We'll be able to get it. Might be able to get it live on TMZ, as a matter of fact. Not have to wait for it thereafter. And yes, Jason will be missed on the field, off the field, in the locker room, everything else. That will be very difficult for the Philadelphia Eagles this upcoming year. Are we going to be saying the same thing about Fletcher Cox in the next couple of days? Because according to Jeremy Fowler, it's a foregone conclusion. Fletcher is retiring. Doesn't say when, some point during this offseason. Nice of Jeremy Fowler to tell us Fletcher's walking out the door, but not tell us when. Is going to tell us when? How is this going to go down, Scotty Grayson? Look into your football prediction crystal ball and give us a little bit of a timeline.
You know, I talked to Fletcher out at the Super Bowl, and I really didn't get I didn't get the impression he was 100% committed to either playing or retiring. I really got the impression he thought he was still going to play. Just reading body language. I mean, he admitted, he said, I don't know what's going to happen. He strikes me as the guy, and when he's spoken since the end of the season and even out there when I talk to him, I think he still thinks he has something left in the tank. And I think he's sitting here trying to figure out, do I want to give it one more go? I tend to think that he's going to fall into the line of like an Ndamukong Suh, where, you know what? I don't really need to be in for training camp. I don't even really know if I need to go through the early season. There's 17 games now. I could sit back and just kind of watch this season unfold. And then when somebody needs me due to injury, I can cash the check. I can go play a half a season. I feel like ultimately
that's what I would do, by the way. I would
right. I mean, if you can do it, why not?
Yeah.
I kind of got the sense that he's not. See, I don't think he's ready to retire. I just didn't get that sense.
He had a good season.
I've seen these reports too that you guys are saying and talking about, and it's kind of like, you know, how from when I talked to him a month ago, I mean, a month is a long time, I guess. Did he get to, yeah, I'm just going to retire? I could see it being. I think Fletcher Cox's future is sit back, wait, listen. I mean, I guess he could retire and then unretire. I mean, Tom Brady did it, right? So if he did it, why couldn't anybody else?
Yeah. I think he did it out of spite, though.
I don't think he's done for good. Now, is he done for good with the Eagles? Probably, unless they're the team that suffers the injury and says, "Hey, we want you back for half a season."
Yeah. Now, see, but during cleanout day, you know, we first started hearing rumblings that Fletcher might retire. I think Fletcher's deal is he doesn't want to leave Philadelphia. He wants to go the Kelce, Brandon Graham, hopefully Lane Johnson route of playing his entire career with one team. But he also sees Jalen Carter down 3 lockers and Jordan Davis down 4 lockers and Milton Williams. All the Eagles have been doing is drafting defensive tackles.
Yeah.
So he sees it as, well, they draft young guys not to not play them, especially first round picks. And he's like, I can still play. So it's kind of a disconnect. And he cleaned out his locker, which, as you know, Scott, is not normal for a veteran player. Like Brandon, you know, keeps all the stuff there. And Kelce,
he's got a lot of it too.
Yeah, keeps all the stuff there. Fletcher, for many years, kept all the stuff there. And all of a sudden, it's all gone. And then Jordan Davis, of course, talked about him in the past tense, which gave an indication that he told Jordan and Jalen specifically, this is your team now. This is your defense. So that's where it all started about the potential retirement. But I will say, I want to talk, because I got in trouble, shockingly. That'll shock you, Scott. I got in trouble. Boy, I think Fletcher Cox is underrated. And Eagles lexicon, I mean, nobody talks about this guy. And it's weird. Kelce's career is weird because early in his career, he was just a good player. It was like 2011 to 2016 or whatever it was. He was solid, capable starting center. And then all of a sudden, he turns into Jim Otto, all pro, all pro, all pro, all pro, a year after year after year after year. It's typically the other way. Like Fletcher, early in his career, was one of the best defensive players in Philadelphia Eagles history. And then you have the slow drop off. And for whatever reason, if he retired, you're certainly not going to get the hubbubaloo of Jason Kelce. But where is he in Eagles lexicon? Because I think he's one of the best players in Philadelphia Eagles history.
Well, I think it's a great question. And when you look back, remember he would get rubbed the wrong way, personally, at the notion that Ndamukong Suh might have been a better defensive tackle than him, and when they were both in their prime. he wanted to be the best. He wanted to be number one. He felt he was number one in terms of rankings and all that stuff. He would talk about it. It mattered to him. And the fact that he was in that conversation just tells you how dominant he really was at his prime. But that's why I go back to that there's still stuff in the tech. I mean, John, the team was falling apart in the second half of the season. We all watched it.
Jody called him the most consistent defensive player on the team this past season. Yes. And I don't disagree with him. Yeah, I don't disagree with him.
So like Jalen Carter had hit a bit of a wall. Jordan Davis disappeared. But there was Fletcher Cox still making plays, trying to, again, further putting out the point that he knew that the time was winding down, trying to get that season to turn around and doing what he could in the middle to make some sort of plays. And I think that showed you about character, showed you about want to, showed you about desire, showed you about, really what he's been able to sustain in his career here. And that's why, you talk about finishing out as an Eagle, and I think that would be fantastic for what he's done. Again, still one of the few players left here that brought the ring. He still believes he can play, and it's got to be hard for these guys to walk away if you still believe you can play, because that when you make that choice, unless you're Tom Brady, you can't come back. Like, it's not like once you start letting it go, you can go, I can still play. I'm gonna get back in there. Well, you slimmed down a little bit. You started to lose all that, and so. But where is he? I think he is one of the best, John. I think he is one of the best players. I mean, it is interesting if you were to make a defensive Mount Rushmore of Philadelphia Eagles history. You certainly have Brian Dawkins. You got Reggie White. He's a contender for one of the other two spots, I think, for sure. I mean, and Brandon Graham's another guy you have to keep in the conversation a little bit. But in terms of all time, they had big plays, and it's a good question, but his impact will be felt in the fact that he won't be in the locker room if he's not. We don't want to draw too many conclusions, but as you said, cleaned out the locker. That's a sign. Yeah. He was Jalen Carter's.
By the way, if you let me interrupt, thank you, Scott. Did Kelce clean out his?
No. In his defense, he would need a moving company.
Yeah.
No, he did not.
All right. So sometimes that's a telltale sign, and sometimes it's a misnomer. So I just wanted to point that out. Kelce left. He left his stuff in the locker there.
It's more of a gesture to clean out than it is to leave, because Kelce, as I said, and I'm being literal because of the podcast, and our buddy Jeff Kerr got in trouble because he took a picture of his locker the one time, and he got on the New Heights podcast. He's like, come on, Jeff, stop doing that, because he gets all this free crap now sent to him. So he just has boxes and boxes and boxes of free crap just loaded up in his locker. And why is nobody sending us free crap, Jody? Send us free crap. But anyway, he's got all that stuff, and Bart being facetious, but it would take a long time to clean the stuff out. Now, Fletcher also had a well-stocked locker, and he made the effort to get that stuff out of there while reporters were there. Remember, you can wait until we're cleared out. You can come back the next day. We're in there first. So usually you're trying to say something when you're doing that. Nick Morrow, a certain guy, Shaq. There wasn't a speck of dust in Shaq Leonard's locker. That's how quick he was out.
Got out with Dustbuster in hand. You're saying?
Yes. Yeah. He even took his nameplates out.
Shaq, we hardly knew ye.
Yeah. I was saying, wasn't there too long for dust to accumulate?
Yeah. Michael Bennett's my favorite story. Michael Bennett showed up. Great guy, by the way, Michael Bennett. Just I used to have so many conversations with Michael Bennett, none of them about football, usually about our Netflix queue at the time. But he showed up, and he was a messy dude. And he showed up with this giant suitcase, and he put it in the middle of the locker room, and it never moved. I don't know if you remember that year, Scott. It never moved. I used to joke there's got to be a dead body in there, but there's never any smell. It never moved. Never opened, never jostled, even an inch or two. Weird, very weird.
Really?
Yeah.
You never told that story before. And I like Michael Bennett. I was same as you. You were in the locker room. I didn't get the chance to talk to him the way you did, and he came in with like a questionable reputation.
Ah, it's great, dude.
I never thought that was the case. His game had started to come back to the pack by the time he got to the Eagles, and he wasn't terrible with the Eagles, but he wasn't as great as he had been prior to. But I always thought he was a good hard-nosed player. I
he's
never
a very
understood
good player in his prime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood the critique of Bennett. All right, we started the show talking about Avonte Maddox, and he was officially released yesterday. Another guy they're going to have to try and figure out how to replace. I think they're all in on Isaiah Rodgers. This is one of those how he can put up in the win column and circle it because they're going to get him on a cheap deal and he's got a chance to be real good. Yes, he played more outside than inside for the Colts, but the Colts had a great inside cornerback, so he wasn't going to supplant him. Am I getting? And there's always the possibility that he may take the Pistons and the points tonight in the NBA and do so on Eagle property this afternoon and get his ass suspended again. Am I putting too many eggs in the Isaiah Rodgers in the slot for the Eagles basket this next season, Mr.
I don't
Grayson?
think so. I feel like there was smoke that was starting to come out, right? You all look for signs. I feel like there was a little bit of smoke coming out, even as much as like, I don't know, about a month ago, about him being linked to a possibility of coming to the Eagles. The Avonte Maddox move only fuels that speculation. I'm sure, as you guys said, there's still the opportunity for Maddox to come back on a different deal. Which I liked Avonte Maddox. I really did. I thought he was a good guy, nice guy, good person, great, player inside. But the problem for him, obviously, was staying healthy. And so you've got to do what you look. This is a big offseason for Howie. I mean, this team, this defense needs so much work. You can see he's doing all his wizardry with trying to free up cap space as much as possible. I'm waiting for what they do with Reddick. It's going to tell me whether he's trying to stockpile draft picks or whether he's trying to, use some of that money or offset some of it by redoing a little bit of a deal with Reddick. But as far as that inside cornerback position goes, I think Rodgers would be a good one. I'd like to think the guy learned his lesson with the betting, as you pointed out.
You would hope.
But yeah, I think it would be a good addition on the inside there because I continue to wonder, what are you going to do with Bradbury? And I know we've talked about, I think the last time I was on with you guys, it's just, was he that bad or was, will he come back and will they give him the opportunity to show that he has, not lost a step, was just a bad end of a season, that kind of thing. I just don't see Slay and Bradbury being together again. So I think one of them's got to move.
I think Bradbury's about, June 1st. You can't cut him now because you'd lose about $11 million in cap space if you cut him now.
Look at what the Broncos are doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the Eagles, as you mentioned, Scott.
They like the cap. They like the cap.
Yeah, and I think they think of themselves as contenders if they make the right moves, and they need cap space to make the right moves. Even if you wait till post June 1st, you're still going to take a hit, but it goes down to about $6 million. So, but you also, I mean, people should, I don't think I've mentioned, you also got to factor in, you only get two post June 1st designations. It's not like you can do it with everybody. So you only get two of those.
Which, by the way, did you see or hear, or did they announce if they're going to go post June 1st with Maddox?
I don't think they are for that reason, but no, it's not official. But I don't think they are. They would save about $2 million now if they cut them. If they designate them post June 1st, it would be over $7 million on the cap. But you got to be very cautious. And I just texted our buddy Brad Spielberger this morning because I don't know if Jason Kelce counts against that because they have to post-date Jason Kelce's contract post June 1st, or they're really affected in a negative fashion. And I don't know if retirements count. I think they count. So there's a lot of strategy
They're
involved.
down to one post June 1st if that's the way they handle Kelce, is what you're telling us.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, if you use automatics, you're done. And is it worth it for, and remember, you don't get that cap space now. I think a lot of people don't understand that. You have to wait for it till June 2nd.
Right.
So you have to carry Avonte Maddox's contract through June, and then you get that space June 2nd. Well, most of free agency's done. Your draft is done. So it's not as valuable as the cap space now. Anyway. But that's kind of the thing. On Rodgers, I kind of look at Rodgers the same way I look at Julian Okwara and Ty Davis Price, the running back the Eagles signed as futures players. They gave Okwara $1.276 million, and he can make up to, I think, $2.6 million. So they gave him a really good futures deal. Ty Davis Price, they gave $1.1 million. I think his agents lied because they said it was the highest futures contract. Well, I think Okwara got more on the same team. But either way, the two highest.
But Okwara was afterwards, right? So
no, Okwara was first.
He was?
Okwara, okay. Yeah, he was first. And then Ty Davis Price, which is still a great deal for futures. So it's a big deal. And Isaiah got less than both of them, 1.055, but pretty significant. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think they're counting on Isaiah Rodgers. Like, if he seizes the job, first he's got to get reinstated. And then he seizes the job. Great. It works out. But I don't think they can go into it and say, all right, that's the plan. This is our guy. You guys think they can do that? Because
I do.
After this
I think
year,
they're going to. Do you think they're going to sign someone for significantly more?
Well,
slot corner. The one thing we found out this year, John, just saying, "Ooh, the guy is viable, and you can play him at several different positions." Yeah, they thought that about all their backup slot corners when the year started, and then they ran through every single one of them without any success. So, if I were Howie Roseman, I'd be a little protective of that and saying, "Yeah, I'm not signing a backup guy unless I know he's a slot corner. Not maybe he's a slot corner, and maybe he can play inside and outside, and maybe he can come down from safety to play the." No maybes. You need a guy who can play in the slot. And if they're not getting that, I don't think they're signing a guy who's going to make more than that much more, double or triple what Rodgers is making. Don't see it.
Boy, I don't want to throw all my eggs in that basket. You, Scott, are you comfortable with that?
I mean, I'm definitely for, if you can get him cheap enough, which it sounds like you can. I don't see the harm in bringing him in.
No, I have no problem bringing him in. I just can't. I can't put him. I can't use pen. I'll write it in sand. I'll pencil it.
To me, he's a competitive piece, and maybe he goes out and wins something, and it's nice to see if he can. I'm all for bringing him in to see if he can win a job. But that's where, Jody, I agree with you. Like, you can't. This is not the year to go, I think somebody can do this or that, or this and that. This is the year where Howie, especially on defense, needs to go with Vic Fangio. I know this guy can do this or that in my defense. It can't be, you can't make guesses this year. It's got to be definitive. This piece fits my puzzle. And to that extent, I don't know to what extent do Bradbury and Slay fit what Vic Fangio wants to do. I mean,
well, they've been playing.
I'd love to know what those conversations are like over there as they try to set up their draft board and what they want to do in free agency.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to make you, Scotty Grayson, Howie Roseman for a day, or at least the next 10 minutes. And we will use information that has been floated out there, right, wrong, or indifferent. There are reports that if Hassan Reddick is traded, the Eagles will be asking for at least a second-round draft pick, if not a second plus, and might settle for a third and a fifth-round draft pick if it's going to be 2 picks, but not something as high as the number 2. So either a second or a third. I think we'd all agree a second would be more valuable than a third and a fifth.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the only team willing to give him a second-round draft pick for Hassan Reddick is the Dallas Cowboys. and they're willing to pay Hassan Reddick's going rate. And Hassan says, yeah, I'll go play for the Cowboys. It might not even be the best conversation he has with other teams, he and his agent, since he's got the ability to do that. But it's good enough, and it's surely better than what the Eagles were talking about before they gave him permission to seek a trade. If the Cowboys put the best trade on the table, do you trade Hassan Reddick to the Dallas Cowboys?
I tell you right now, I don't want to see him in division. I don't want to know that guy's going to have two opportunities to go get the chance on the field to give you the middle finger for letting him go. I just, especially Dallas. I don't want to help Dallas in any way. And I know, like, you could argue, this is the question of again, value. What value does Hassan Reddick have now and in the future? Because that's what you're trying to bank on. Man, that guy can still play. He can still play at a high level. And I don't need him trying to, after he's been going up, and understand how to beat it's not easy, but how to get by some of these offensive linemen every day in practice, and then twice a year with the Cowboys, who really are the team, at least for the next year or two, the team that you have to worry about for the division title. That's a no. That's a, hey, Hassan, you're welcome to see what they're willing to offer, but in division, probably not going to happen, buddy. I respect you too much to have to see you twice a year.
If you're trading somebody in division, it's like Donovan McNabb. He's done, and he knew he was done. He's like, go ahead, take him. I don't care.
Yeah, right.
That they don't think Hassan's done, and they sure don't know he's done. So I can't imagine they would trade him in the division. But we'll see how it shakes out. The legal negotiation period starts Monday.
That's always a
Jody and I. Yeah, it is. Jody and I were talking about splashes. So what's a splash, Scott? And this last one at Grayson, Box 29. Thanks for stopping by, Scott, as always. Some good insights. Final insight. Splashing move for the Eagles. So I brought up Cam Curl, because I think the Eagles are going to make somewhat of a decent move early in the process. Probably going to be on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think they're going to go crazy, but that's a pretty good player. He's going to probably make over $10 million a year. Where's that on your splash meter? Or do you need something more? Do you need a splashier move?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't see them making the TO move that lights the world on fire, because, as we highlighted, Howie loves to have money to spend. So splashy move translates to, I'm blowing a big part of my salary cap space on
L'Jarius Sneed. Let's say L'Jarius Sneed,
sure.
$19 million.
I would love to have. Yeah. I would love to have him, but you have so many holes to fill. If you get him, do you have enough left over to fill the other spots? And I, maybe they have a plan to do that with the draft, and they feel confident. I mean, they always seem to feel more confident in the draft than I ever do. But, that goes down to – I prefer a guy who's proven he can play at the NFL over a guy coming out of college who may have been a stud that I don't know if you can do this. I don't know if you can do this at this level.
You can't be an NFL GM, Scott.
Yeah, I know.
They hold on to those draft picks like grim death. Yeah. Even day 3 picks.
Yeah, I'm with you on the curl move. I think that might be about what we're looking at. L'Jarius Sneed, I still think is a possibility if they can somehow find a way. And then this is where Howie likes to dive in the numbers and do a contract that's player friendly over the cost, team friendly over how they divide it up. He's the kind of player, frankly, I think they need. But I don't know if they're going to be willing to spend. I don't think they're going to be willing to spend that kind of money, especially right away.
Yeah, I don't think there's a big splash coming Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday when they become official and you can get deals done. I'd like to see it. I hope I'm wrong. Feel free to kill me here on Birds 365 on Tuesday if there's a big report of the Eagles signing Xavier McKinney on Monday. Yeah, just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, but so we're past the combine, and we're now weeks away from the draft. But we didn't have you on last week, so the Scott Grayson pick, and we know what they do next week, starting in free agency, is going to have a major impact on what they do in the draft. First round positional draft in the first round. Who they're going to pick, what position. We won't even begin to ask you to pick a guy, but just give us a position as a good guess.
I got to believe it's in the trenches. That's where they seem to live early in the rounds in the draft. So odds on favorite, my opinion, would be offensive or defensive line. And I got to believe, I think I would go probably defensive line slightly ahead of offensive line. I would love to see them take a good young corner again, just because I just feel the back end or DB in some way, you still need to fill another safety spot. The back end scares me, man. It just scares me. But then,
well, it should.
You got to get pressure too, and they didn't do that well enough last year as well. And they've got to get younger on that defensive line. That's obvious with the guys we were talking about earlier leaving or potentially leaving. So I would probably go defensive line just because the Eagles put so much stock on winning the trenches.
Well, especially if Hassan Reddick goes somewhere, they got to get an edge.
Like I said, we'll know that much more as by the time April rolls around. I'm hoping, I'm rooting. Jared Verse, Florida State, Albany Tough, former Great Dane, fellow alma mater guy. Jared Verse falls down to number 22, and the Eagles scoop him up. I don't think he's getting.
I don't think that's happening, Jody.
Yeah, I know. He was too good at the combine to drop down to 22.
But we all know Howie, right? And we do this every year.
He could move up.
Will Howie pick at 22, or will he move up or down?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he might target a player. You're talking about corners. The Toledo kid, Quinyon Mitchell. That might be the target if he's going to. Remember, he moved up to get Devontae Smith. He moved up to get Jordan Davis. He moved up even to get Jalen Carter. Targeted moves up. But he if he likes a player, he'll go up. So if Mitchell starts to drop a little bit and he gets into that 15, 16, 17 range,
he's reachable.
Yeah, he might make a move. He might make a move.
I just don't see how he never likes where he's slotted. He always wants to move somewhere, or as we talked about, maybe there's a player he doesn't like at 22, so he drops down to get more draft capital. I mean, he's always got something up his sleeve, it seems.
And more likely,
scares me that kid from. Do you like that kid from Clemson?
Yes, Wiggins.
He ran so well. That scares me. When guys start popping up the board, like Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver, set the new record, ran a 4.21 or whatever it is. And now people are talking about him as a late first round pick. I'm like, I don't know.
My problem with that stuff.
Wiggins was legit before he ran that number.
He was kind of a bridge pick. He was kind of late first, early second. If the Eagles take him at 22, I wouldn't like it.
Oh, I would love him at 22. Wiggins is going to go before 22. He's not going to be available to.
Well, because he runs good. I'm glad. Good.
My problem with some of that stuff, though, John, is you're right. Like, you get all this, all of a sudden, guys start shooting up after the combine. Well, and this is why I wouldn't be a good GM as well. There's another reason. You can run in a straight line super fast. When in an NFL game are you really given the opportunity to run in a straight line really fast?
Corners are the only ones. Receivers and corners.
And
that's about it.
Yeah.
But XP just put out they're a training facility. I was trying to find it. Like most of the record guys train there. And they take very much pride in that, and they should. But most of them aren't great football players. Like Kalon Barnes, ran a 4.23. Dree Archer, ran a 4.26.
Well, John Ross held the record, and he was never much of a player.
John Ross, you're right, held the record. He was a first-round pick, but wasn't much of a player.
No.
Well, look
most of those guys, Chris Johnson was a great running back for a while, but most of those guys aren't great football players.
You have to have physical tools, yes, and skills. But to me, look at the greats we talk about in the game. And I know a lot of them are quarterbacks, but even Kelce you throw in here. Football IQ to me is so important.
Yeah, look at Puka Nacua. PFF just came out with a game-adjusted speed, another one of their wacky metrics. I don't know whether you want to believe it, throw it out, but his game-adjusted speed was in the 99th percentile, and he couldn't run a lick, and he's a fifth-round pick, but he can play. I saw him play. He was pretty good.
Yep.
He was pretty good. Now that they have the GPS stuff, I don't even think these 40 times matter anymore because they can tell how fast they are on the field.
Right. That's true. That's a great point. You get this next level analytics and stuff. Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't have access to that information. Yeah. Unfortunately. Hopefully someday.
We shall see. Scotty Grayson, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for hopping on board. Tell everyone over at Fox Twitter, especially that knucklehead shredder.
Yeah,
that we send our regards. Appreciate
you got it
with us today.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Scott Grayson from Fox 29 here with us on Birds 365. Hey, Birds fans, have I got a deal for you? Here's a chance for you to save up to 40% on your car insurance. Do so right now from one of our JAKIB Sports great partners. Call one of the two managing partners, either Jim or Fran, and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365 and save.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!